to ensure that every single voter gets their vote and is counted. And again, to me, all of this was reflection, and really, to me, the winner is democracy today. And I don't mean to sound trite or cheesy, it just is true. We saw millions of people vote in our state this election, and I'm truly grateful for every single person who was part of Team Democracy making it work. I want to share with you some stories today from the clerks around the state who really did extraordinary things to make sure every vote counted. There's Justin Roebuck in Ottawa County. When it looked like he was going to run out of ballots halfway through the day, he ran and printed 2,000 extra just to ensure they have enough. Ingham County Clerk Barb Byram coordinated local clerks in Ingham County to make sure ballots got to the local clerk on time, because as you know, absentee ballots had to be received by 8 p.m. And if ballots were accidentally dropped in the wrong drop box in the county, she worked to ensure they got to the right local clerk on time by 8 p.m. Lisa Brown in Oakland County organized an efficient and centralized absentee counting board to securely tabulate hundreds of thousands of absentee ballots for the county, particularly for localities that didn't have access to high-speed ballot tabulators like Pontiac and Southfield and other areas. And by pooling resources, they were able to efficiently tabulate more ballots quickly than ever before. Tina Barton in Rochester Hills, a local clerk who deputized staff to take emergency ballots to residents in hospitals, including one who gave birth today in Royal Oak, Beaumont. And I just came from Detroit's absentee counting board, where under the leadership of City Clerk Janice Winfrey, thousands of highly trained election workers are working right now and worked throughout today and even yesterday, and will continue working through the night to efficiently tabulate nearly 180,000 absentee ballots that were voted in the city of Detroit. And that number may continue to increase as we continue to see the return of ballots from satellite offices and drop boxes that were utilized throughout the day. Already, 120,000 of those ballots have been tabulated today alone since 7 a.m., which is extraordinary and really puts us on track to see our results much sooner than we'd ever anticipated. Because all around the state today, our clerks went above and beyond to make sure that every single vote was counted and every voice was heard. They were assisted by tens of thousands of election workers who throughout today worked to ensure every precinct opened on time at 7 a.m., was fully staffed, and was ready to receive voters. And so what was it like for our voters today? While polling locations were islands of calm with a steady stream of citizens casting ballots throughout the day. There were times throughout the state where a lot of voters would show up at once, and so you'd see a line. But by no means did we see long lines throughout the state of Michigan today, which was another victory for democracy. What we saw instead were citizens from both sides of the aisle respecting the process, respecting each other, wearing a mask to stay safe, observing but not disrupting the counting and voting process. It was really an inspiring thing to see, and to know that all around the state, citizens were coming together just simply to ensure every vote was counted and every voice was heard. Absentee counting boards throughout the state efficiently processed and tabulated a record number of absentee ballots, putting us on track to be in a position to potentially see a full result of every tabulation out of Michigan in the next 24 hours, which is very exciting. Voters turned out in record numbers today in Michigan, shattering past turnout records. And thus far, we know that 3.3 million ballots were voted absentee. But as I mentioned earlier, more are coming in as we speak. The deadline was 8 p.m. at the drop box or at the local clerk. So we anticipate that number may grow even more, close to the 3.5 million that were ultimately requested by ballots. But we're already seeing a high percentage of those ballots in clerks' hands, reported in and beginning to be tabulated, which is another great thing to see. In terms of in-person turnout, we're still getting those numbers from our precincts, from local clerks throughout the state. So we'll know more in the hours ahead of how many people voted in person today. We know, again, turnout was about what we expected, between 2 and 2.5 million voters, but we will know more specific numbers as we get more reports from our local clerks and our county clerks in the hours ahead. Also extraordinary was that in-person voter registration exceeded 28,000 today. 28,000 citizens, eligible citizens, registered to vote and voted today. Another extraordinary indicator that our democracy is healthy, that people participated, that this election in Michigan will be an accurate reflection of the will of the people. Notably, a lot of those folks registering in person did so here in Detroit. Many did in Ann Arbor, many did in Grand Rapids. Those were the three areas of the state where we saw the largest number of voter registration today. But it's, again, a testament to voters throughout the state that so many were able to participate, and the clerks who made that all happen. Now, a lot of you know I'm a data person, and so we're going to get a lot more data in the next 24 hours. And like all of you and folks all across the country, we're going to be looking at the numbers and focusing on data. As every hour passes, we expect to get more data in, more information in. And so I'm really here tonight to ask you all to be patient. We're going to count every single vote in the state of Michigan. No matter how long it takes, no matter what candidates say, we're going to work methodically and meticulously to count every single valid ballot, and that, and only that, will determine who wins every race on the ballot in the state of Michigan. We know there's going to be a lot of speculation about this work that we're engaged in to tabulate every valid vote in the hours ahead. So here's the deal. My administration spent the past 22 months preparing for this election. We strengthened the security of our election system, implementing data-driven best practices and putting in place an infrastructure to ensure every Michigan voter knows their rights and how to exercise them. We've provided our clerks the physical and financial resources they needed to ensure every polling location today was open and safely staffed, while also enabling them to safely and accurately count the incredible number of absentee ballots that they are currently tabulating. We implemented voter education efforts and programs. We did outreach to communities in dozens of languages. We did outreach to communities in low turnout areas to better understand the obstacles they face and try to overcome them. That work paid off in the numbers I just shared. Reports from our team members deployed throughout the state today were universally showing that things went incredibly smooth. Where there was an issue, it was resolved quickly. Voters who needed assistance were directed to where they could receive it. Polling places remained healthy and calm places for people to go. And the tireless work of our clerks all across the state made this possible. So we've witnessed and experienced history today. There's no question to me that this was a success, that democracy won the day, that our voters and our clerks should all be proud of the work we've done together. So now what's important is that we continue to work together to ensure truth and accurate information guides us in the days ahead. Bad actors sought to misinform our voters about their rights today. We saw robocalls, we saw text messages try to confuse citizens about whether or not they could vote and whether or not they were eligible to vote. But none of that had the intended effect, because our voters reported, instead of listening and believing the misinformation, our voters reported it to the Attorney General in our office so that we could counter them together, launch an investigation as the Attorney General did, and work to ensure that bad information didn't take root in our communities and impact voting or voting outcomes. So now we have to continue that same vigilance in the days ahead, while our election workers across the state work to count each and every valid ballot. We have to honor that work that went in today to making sure every vote got in, honor the work that went in throughout these past months to ensure every absentee ballot was delivered and received on time. And I ask you all to work together to respect that process. It's critical in the hours ahead that we work to ensure that we not give space to anyone who attempts to make premature declarations about the outcome of any races in Michigan. So we're going to remain vigilant as votes are counted to ensure the democratic process unfolds as the law stipulates. While it is possible there will be races or ballot questions where results, even with minimal returns, are clear, our vigilance will be critical in any question of a close race. So I'm relying on all of you and voters alike, in partnership with my office and out of respect for the will of the voters and the work of our election workers today, especially those tabulating ballots as we speak, to stand vigilant with us. Until the full unofficial count can be provided, we will continue to provide updates on the status of the tabulation process throughout the hours to come that will include the number of outstanding ballots that still need to be counted. We have been and will continue to be fully transparent throughout this whole process. We will ensure that if misinformation is inevitably spread, that we quickly identify it for what it is, an attempt to undermine voters and others' confidence in our system. And we will confirm that when we have final results to share, it will be an accurate reflection of the will of the voters. So I want to thank again the clerks and the staff all across the state that made today such a success. I want to thank the members of my team who worked to facilitate everything that's happened today and the partners we've had along the way, like the Detroit Pistons, like the Detroit Lions, like the athletes and corporate leaders and our governor and our attorney general, who shared the belief that our democracy is at its strongest when every voice is heard and every vote is counted. And most importantly, I want to thank the millions of citizens who participated in our elections here in Michigan. And I want to leave you with a story of voters in Macomb County tonight. As the sun set this evening, supporters of both candidates for president gathered on the opposite sides of a street near an elementary school in Warren, shouting support for their candidate and disdain for the opposing side. After a while, however, a song broke out. People began singing "God Bless America." And before long, both sides had come together, singing in unison, reflecting their common commitment to democracy, our country, and our future. So I want us all to be like those citizens in the hours ahead, in the days ahead. May we all come together in respect of the will of the voters in Michigan and throughout the country, whatever that will may be. Thanks. I'm happy to take a few questions.
Can you go over the anticipated number of absentee ballots and the number of people that voted today and overall total?
Yes. Right now, the most recent data we have is that 3.26 million absentee ballots have been received and are beginning the process or already been tabulated. Now that number may increase as we get the final results, because remember, they could, as long as they were at their local clerk's office by 8 p.m. today, and in 4 counties, we know 8 p.m. is 9 p.m. Eastern, they will count. And so we just want to emphasize that number may grow, but it may grow, it's not going to exceed 3.5 million, because that was the full number that was ultimately requested. But already that's about 93% of the 3.5 requested that have been returned. So that's very good. It shows that a lot of our concerns about ballots perhaps not getting in on time, while again, there's still several thousand that that may be outstanding, but we by and large saw a high return rate, and that's a good thing. In terms of in-person turnout, we're going to know more in the hours ahead. We certainly can estimate 2 to 2.5 million citizens voted today. But that said, that number is also going to change and evolve. As I mentioned during my remarks, like many of you, I like data. I like numbers. And what I've seen now, this is the 4th election we've managed this year. A lot of numbers are going to become more clear in the hours ahead. And there have been elections already where I've tried to give you data and numbers, and that ended up evolving and changing in the hours to come, or clarifying, perhaps I should say. So just know that's probably going to happen in the next few hours. I know we all want to get as much information as we can right now, and we're going to keep giving you all the information that we've got at our disposal, and I'll keep putting it out there on social media in the hours ahead. But again, just want to recognize as well that the way we get our numbers is when local clerks get ballots or get information and they enter it into our statewide system. And so sometimes it takes time, and we'll continue again to update you as we go along. Yes. Yeah, I'm very happy to say that as we saw in Detroit, where we thought it would take 80 hours in Detroit to tabulate the close to 180,000 absentee ballots that they'll have, they got through 120,000 today in 13 hours. That's really good. So, I'm confident that we'll have more of an update for Detroit in the morning. And the clerk noted that by, in the next 24 hours, she expects the full tabulation of every vote in Detroit to be complete. Detroit's our largest jurisdiction. And so we usually make estimates based on when they're done, because it's going to take them the longest. They have the most ballots. We know a lot of other jurisdictions are speeding through their tabulation. So I expect we'll have a very clear picture, if not a final picture, of the unofficial results for Michigan in the next 24 hours.
Madam Secretary, will this be the first time that absentee votes will exceed in-person votes?
Yes.
And how many total registered voters are there in the state?
Just over 8 million registered voters in the state of Michigan.
Share a little bit more about this morning. You cast your ballot in Detroit at the facility, which wasn't a ballot box before, and then you come here and ballots are rolling in the boxes. Just your emotions of of that?
I'm grateful for our sports partners who in Detroit really led the way for sports teams across the country to play a pivotal role, a critical role in providing the resources we needed to run elections successfully this year, whether it was providing personnel to make sure we could staff all of our precincts, providing a secure space to welcome ballots at the end of the night, or enabling voters to vote while visiting the Detroit Pistons facility, as I did this morning, and having celebrations around that. All of it is something that I hope will continue in the years ahead and really underscores the work that went into today, which was truly a team effort. Yes, and that.
Given the unprecedented nature of this year, are you satisfied with the rate the vote is coming in? Many folks we spoke to thought they'd be done by midnight, 1, 2-ish.
I fully expect that many local clerks will be fully done with their tabulation tonight. I also think we'll see it'll take 24 hours before we see a full unofficial tabulation, as I mentioned, for Michigan. All of that is a great thing because, as you know, based on math and our previous performance in August, we estimated Friday because it took 40 hours to do 1.6 million ballots. And if we've got twice that, now it looks like more than twice that. In this election, we estimated 80 hours. But of course, over the past several months, we've worked to increase the number of high-speed ballot tabulators. We've worked to identify best practices like in Oakland County and expand them throughout the state. And we work to recruit more workers to ensure, like here in Detroit, we've got thousands instead of hundreds as were in past elections to increase capacity. So we recognize that there's a lot of eyes on Michigan tonight, and there will be in the days that follow. And our clerks have really stepped up to provide data as soon as possible, but we're all also focused on accuracy. We don't want to report one thing and have to pull it back. As much as, like all of you, I'd love to be able to give you, all the final data right now. That's just not how our system works. It's not really how any state's going to work when you can't, again, begin tabulating ballots until this morning, as most communities could. Yes. In the back. Go ahead. Yeah.
When we see precincts reporting now, does that include the absentee ballots, or is that just their in-person and absentee?
I haven't done a deep dive into what's being made public right now because we've just been trying to keep the work happening. So I anticipate, so I don't have a specific answer, but I would say that I anticipate quite soon, if not already, you'll see absentee ballot numbers reported. I just haven't looked at what's been made public yet, so I can't say for sure. But the county clerk's websites that are making it public should perhaps provide that bifurcation. That said, I'm focused on, because the vast majority of voters voted absentee, and I think we should all recognize that really any partial count that doesn't include absentees is not close to being a full reflection of that particular community.
So precincts possibly could report without absentee ballots. It's going to take a while.
Sure, that's possible, but what I'm seeing more of is a collection of both being reported. But again, I haven't. I've been over the past hour visiting the Detroit tabulation absentee counting board, so I haven't been actually following, what data has been made public and all of those things. I've just been trying to make sure the process is running smoothly. But certainly, it's why I also caution patience, because no matter what, we know partial results, however they're defined, are what's coming out right now. Of that, I'm sure. And we do have to wait until there's a full tabulation, particularly in any close race, before we have any sense of, any winner or loser. We know of a few robocalls. Well, I should first say, every time we heard of an instance of misinformation, we made it public so that people would know the truth. And we worked to get the truth out there. And then we also referred it to the Attorney General, who was quite vigilant as well at launching any investigations. And that's kind of how it's worked throughout this whole election season. So that said, what I can say with confidence is that the misinformation we identified, which was particularly through robocalls and texts, we identified and corrected, and we sought partners like many professional athletes who joined us in correcting and getting correct information out there, which we are very grateful for. And so there's no evidence that in any way, that it landed in a way that caused confusion or chaos or deterred people from voting. In what I saw today was when misinformation hit our voters, they knew it was wrong, they reported it to us, and we were able to investigate to begin getting to the bottom of who was behind it. Yes. We're going to know much more in the hours and days ahead of that, how that particular issue with the Postal Service affected Detroit and affected Michigan. I can say a couple of things. One, the Attorney General was at the Detroit Processing Center and the Pontiac Center yesterday, actually with eyes on any ballots, any election mail that still had to be delivered, and was given every assurance that it would be delivered before polls close today. And so you have to ask her for more information about that particular experience. But the assurance I got from her and the confidence I got from her was that we would see any mail that was left moving, but we didn't see a significant amount of mail that was supposed to reach clerks in Michigan that was stuck or in any way delayed. What I've been looking at are the overall numbers, how many ballots have been sent out and how many have come back. And to have what we were at this morning, which was a 92% return rate, was actually much higher than we've been at past elections. And so we're going to continue to track that because we know, again, ballots kept coming in until 8 o'clock today. And that's why I said we'll ultimately know more in the hours ahead about how many ballots got in and if any were delayed or should have gotten in. But that's why I also shared the example of Ingham County, where we also saw clerks just really stepping up to, if a ballot got in the wrong drop box, also making sure it got to the right place today and recognizing the importance of getting every vote in by 8 o'clock. Yes. Yeah, with the challengers in Detroit and elsewhere throughout the state, I'll say I was gratified that most of the reports, if not all the reports we got today of observers in the polls were that they observed, they watched, they took notes, but there was no disruption. There was no record of disruption, which was very great to see. That said, we know in Detroit in particular, and I think I would defer some specifics to Chris Thomas, who has been at the absentee counting board all day and very much closer to that process than I, about how the challenges and the sort of the details of them. But we do know that there are, as he said earlier tonight, a lot of eyes on this process. I think transparency is a good thing. I think we've got enough protections in place to withstand that scrutiny, but we'll see more specifically how any challenges play out in the hours ahead. Certainly tonight, there's going to be a lot of adjudication, as he mentioned, of those challenges. And we anticipate that throughout the day tomorrow, we'll see that continue as well. And that's one of the reasons why, look, I could be standing here saying we'd get Detroit's full results in even sooner. But we know some of those challenges will take some time to work out. And that's why we're saying, and the clerk is saying, in the next 24 hours, we'll see the results. Yes.
You mentioned the Trump supporters and the Biden supporters singing together. A lot of people thought this was going to be really a different scenario, that we were going to see violence at the polls, possibly. Your thoughts on that?
I think that's the story of today, as far as I'm concerned. The story of today is there was extraordinary high levels of turnout, as there has been throughout this election season. In this election, there were extraordinary high numbers of new citizens, new people voting through registering to vote. And people, by and large, saw peacefulness, calmness in the precincts. And that's why I wanted to share that story as well, because I think we just need to be mindful of that in the days to come, that no matter what the result of a particular election in any state, we all have to come together as a country and as a state and move forward. We've got a lot of challenges ahead of us. I know I certainly will think about those citizens in Macomb County who, came together and united as one and singing "God Bless America." And I know and hope that many of us will take that same spirit into the hours and days ahead. Okay, one more question. Anyone?
Any estimate on what the total voting percentage will be in Michigan?
No, we're still, I'm as curious as you are to know what that final number is going to be. I think, I've said would get between 5 and 5.5 million votes overall. We're on track to see that, which would put us at about 70 or 72% turnout, which is very good. But, a lot of that data is really going to play out in the hours ahead. So I'll be watching those numbers. And again, we'll be reporting out either on social media or I'll actually be doing 2 other media availabilities tomorrow to talk through any more details that we've come in. And just as we have in every election this year, we'll continue to try to break down all the numbers and get you all the data you need to help get a full understanding and picture of the electorate in this election. just over 5 million voted in 2008. And so I fully anticipate every data point we're seeing is that we're going to exceed all of our past turnout levels. And we already know in Detroit, we're going to exceed the 2008 turnout. The Detroit clerk said that earlier tonight. So we are on track to see record-breaking turnout in Detroit and throughout the state. And exactly how record-breaking that will be remains to be seen, and we'll know more in the hours to come. Oh, I don't know off the top of my head, but I've been looking at, again, 5 to 5.5 million. I think will vote this year, and I will say every number we've gotten in has really underscored and reflected that higher turnout that we're expecting. So I think at the end of the day, we'll see that. But I'll again join with all of you in being cautious and wait till we get the full numbers in. Yeah, one more question.
You said over 8 million registered voters in Michigan. Do you know how many eligible voters are there? Like,
we can get you those specific numbers. Yeah, we'll get you those specific numbers. There's lots of different ways that's estimated. And I don't want to say anything incorrect at this point. So, okay, everyone, I know we're going to have a long night, a lot of hours in the days ahead. So I'm sure I'll see you again soon. Thanks for being here tonight.
Folks, we will have some time for people when we want to